I'm Craig McLean and welcome to episode 8 of the Mk1 Escort RS 2000 reassembly. As you'll have seen in the last video, I've gone as far as I can with the engine until I get the cross member and the gearbox back from rebuild. So in this episode, I'm looking at concentrating on a couple of other things, such as fitting the fuel tank, fitting the Bilstein front struts, and starting to make the seat runners to fit the front seats so that when the moulded one-piece carpet finally arrives, I can get the interior a bit more complete. So let's crack on. So first job is to look at fitting this fuel tank that I've now got back from powder coating. Now, according to the Bible, for anyone who doesn't know what we class as the Bible, it's the Ford Sporting Escort book, which basically tells you exactly how the car should be. And according to that book, this tank should be primer grey for a Mk1 RS 2000. But I've got to be honest, I'm not really a lover of them in the primer grey. I much prefer the black, so I've opted for black. At the end of the day, it's nothing that isn't anything difficult to change if you ever decide to in future. So I've been getting all the bits together to finally fit this tank, such as I've got a new filler neck joiner. I didn't actually have one at all with the tank. That then joins onto the neck inside the car, which I've temporarily fitted, but it will have to come back out fitted. I didn't want to remove the fuel sender because I thought I don't really want to disturb the seal, but I'm pleased I did take it out, because as I've took it out, you'll see on the back. Where's it at? There you go. The seal's split, and there's a big gap in the seal, so that would have absolutely pissed fuel out everywhere. So I'm pleased I did take the sender out. And I've also bought a new rubber gasket for it, so I can now fit that properly. I can clean up the outlet, put a new fitting in, and basically put it all together and check for leaks. I'm gonna fill it up with some kind of fluid, I don't know what yet, and check for leaks before it goes in the car. So I'll get cracking and I'll show you a little bit of footage when I finally get it fitted in the car, because there's nothing really worth videoing. It's just a case of drop the car in, tighten up the Jubilee clips, etc., put a couple of bolts in. And that's the tank fitted. It's nice to see it in place. I basically took the tank outside this morning. I knew I needed a lot of fluid because I wanted to fill it to the top to make sure that the fuel sender didn't leak. So I ended up just using water. I filled the tank full of water after I fitted the fuel sender and the new seal. That was a bit of a challenge, getting the fuel sender back in, because as you can imagine, a new rubber seal is thicker than an old compressed one. So when you come to push and turn the fuel sender back into the tank, it was really stiff, and I ended up having to take it outside, put the tank on a bit of cardboard, push down, and use a pair of the oil pump pliers, the big oil pump pliers that obviously we use for changing oil pumps, to twist it in. I did get it in. I did an inspection inside the tank, and it's operating correctly. The tank had no leaks when I filled it full of water. I left it for almost an hour, and there was no leaks at all. I'm pleased about that, because obviously leaks can be a bit of a nightmare to sort at times. So that's fully drained out. I spent a good bit of time and made sure I got all the water back out the tank. It's now fitted properly. There's a rubber pipe, a rubber joiner that goes between the cap and the neck on the tank. That needed shortened by about maybe 10-15 mil, a couple of mil off either side. But other than that was quite a nice part to fit, because I basically put the neck on, put the tank in, and it wasn't far off first time. A little bit of tweaking, and it's now fully clamped up. There's a breather that runs from the back of here all the way down. I think you can just see the corner of it there, the corner of the pipe there. Comes out at the bottom there, and that's a breather that runs out the centre for the tank. That's all been done in satin black, so it's not fitted for the final time, but it's in for now, and I'll carry out any final tweaks when it comes to fitting the fuel pump and connecting the fuel lines up. So the first job of today is to fit these Bilstein struts. Now these were built up by a guy called Kevin Paul through the Escortosis selling page on Facebook. He does a lot of these. He builds these up for a lot of customers. He does a fantastic job of them. So these have been fitted with the Princess calipers, 200 pound 10.5 inch springs, new bearings. The hubs have all been blasted, new bearings fitted obviously, new steering arms, and the only thing I've also group 4 TIG welded wedges. You can just see there for extra strength. The only thing I've had to do is they've come with original top mounts, and they were just a little bit tatty. Not, you know, not too bad. I've rubbed them down to bare metal, I've primed them and redone them in satin black, both bottom and top. And they now look, I don't know if you can see underneath, but they were covered in underseal underneath, and I wasn't quite happy with that. So they're now in immaculate condition. So I'm now going to get these two struts fitted to the car. I'll show you a little bit of footage in a minute when they're finally fitted. And that's the Bilstein struts fitted on both sides. Nothing much to it, you know, jack them up into place, stick 3 bolts in, I put new bolts in, put plenty of copper slip on the bolts, and that's them fitted. I actually used a trolley jack to give us a hand because I'm working on my own, and obviously trying to work around tightening the bolts up and lifting the struts up at the same time is a bit of a fight when you're on your own. So yeah, good old trolley jack helped us out. Now I'm in two minds about these calipers at the minute because they look absolutely great as they are, but we all know they don't stay like that. They never stay as clean as that. They tarnish quite quickly. I think it's just some kind of coating they put on them that it doesn't last very long. So I'm thinking about unbolting these and getting them painted Sebring to match the car. I think it'll just it'll last a lot longer. They'll look nice for a lot longer. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up unbolting these and taking them to the pen shop to get them done in Sebring. But that's them two fitted. And from above, I think it was really worth spending the 2 to 3 hours I've spent on these this morning, just cleaning them up and recoating them, because they now look great together with the new bolts. I was a bit thrown off by the bolts for these actually, because they're M8. Now the classic Fords are always, in my experience, UNF, UNC, as they were back in the 70s and the 80s. But these are an M8 or a metric thread. So I can only imagine these must be from a later car, a Capri Mark II, something like that possibly. I don't know. Anyways, they're fitted. This is actually the second time I've recorded this section, because I originally recorded it looking down on the driver's side strut top, and clearly visible in the video was the body number stamped into the top plate on the driver's side. And I thought, no, I don't want to be giving that number away. There's too many dodgy people out there, so hence the reason why I've recorded it on the passenger side. So that's them fitted. So although the Bilstein struts are now fitted to the car, there is still a couple of things that needs to be done before it hits the road. And I'll just go through a couple of them little things that we need to do. The first one is the calipers. There's plenty of information online about this if you're fitting Princess calipers yourself. They have multiple fittings on the back, pipe outlets, or pipe inlets if you like, and you've got to run a link pipe between two of them. Like with most calipers, you've got to link one side of the caliper to the other. It's basically a bit of copper pipe, two fittings, and you do a link pipe between two of the fittings. I can't remember exactly which ones it is now. I have googled it a while ago, and it's just a case of going on the internet, finding out which two walls need linked, and making up a little link pipe. Obviously, you'll need a braided hose from your bracket on the back of your strut to the body, and then again a little link pipe from the bracket on the back of the strut to the caliper. All basic stuff. So I haven't got bottom arms on these struts yet. I still need to buy bottom arms. I'm thinking about getting adjustable bottom arms to give it a little bit more negative camber. I believe from factory they had 1.3 degrees negative camber. Now, for those of you who don't know exactly what negative camber is, I'll try and explain it a little bit. Obviously, those of you who do know, you're not going to learn anything here, obviously. So imagine this disc is the wheel, to make it simple. Obviously, your wheel bolts onto your hub there. In the upright position, that's how it would fit onto the car, obviously. If you lengthen the bottom arm, so it kicks the bottom of the wheel out, so I'm going to exaggerate it here, just for this video, I'm going to exaggerate it. So let's say now we've extended the bottom arm, and the wheel is now at an angle. Obviously, it's going to be nowhere near that angle, but like I say, that's just for the purpose of this video. That's what's called negative camber. 1.3 degrees, like I say, is I believe what was standard. I think I'm probably going to go maybe 1.5, 1.75. The problem is if you go too far, you end up scrubbing the inside edge of your tyre. So another thing we'll need to set at some point is the tracking. We've all had tracking set on our cars at some point, but for those of you who aren't aware of exactly what tracking is, I'll just explain again in simple terms. So again, I'll use my two discs, my two bits of cardboard to signify the two wheels. So imagine this is the driver's side front wheel and this is the passenger side front wheel. They should be perfectly parallel, you know, from side to side, from at the back and at the front. If you could put a measurement between the back of the wheels on the inside edge and the front of the wheels at the inside edge, they should be exact. They should be perfectly in alignment. If they're not in alignment and one of the wheels or both of the wheels are pointing inwards at the front, like that, I'm just going to exaggerate it again, that's what's known as tone in. If they're both pointing out, or one of them's pointing out, that's what's known as toeing out. So tone in, tone out. And basically you get around that by adjusting the steering arms in whatever direction you need to bring them back into alignment, to bring them both parallel. It's worth bearing in mind that the steering racks on the cars are either on the front or the back of the hubs, and that will have an impact on just which way you turn your steering arm, because if it's at the front you have to turn it in a different direction to if it's at the back to achieve your final goal. So that's basically tracking in a nutshell. So I'm moving on to something slightly different now. A good while ago I bought these fishnet Recaro seats. As I've mentioned in other videos, I'm a big fan of them. Now I know these aren't original classic Ford beta cloth fishnets, which wouldn't have been fitted in the Mark 1 anyways. They were fitted in the Mark 2, as I've mentioned many times. But I've seen these on eBay maybe 6-7 months ago, something like that, for an absolute bargain price of 475 quid. And I just couldn't look past them because they're perfect condition. They're absolutely mint. There's not a tear in them anywhere. I've been over them with a fine-tooth comb. I've cleaned them when I got them. To be fair, they didn't really need a clean. I just went over them to see, you know, if I could get them any cleaner, and I couldn't. They're absolutely perfect. The only one problem with these seats is the bolster. If you can just see there on the driver, because this is the driver's side seat, the bolster on the outer edge, the foaming behind slightly collapsed. The material is completely perfect. There's no tears in it. So all I need to do, I've actually got a new foam section to go inside, so I'm going to swap that over at some point. But obviously to fit these into the car, I need seat subframes, and I've looked everywhere for a set of seat subframes for the Mk1 Escort or the Mk2 Escort, and I can't find them anywhere. So I've ended up improvising, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. I ordered the carpet for the car, so I was hoping to get these seats in the not too distant future. But the carpet's a 6 to 8 week waiting time from Newton Commercial, so I'm going to have to wait for that. I ordered it about maybe 2.5 weeks ago, so we're getting on into that time now. It's a one-piece pressed carpet, so there's a bit of a lead time on them. So to fit these into the car, this is the solution I've come up with. So as you know, I've been involved in the Minis for many years, and due to the fact that I know the Minis so well, that I know all about these. Now these are Mini tailored subframes. Now, and I can hear you asking, well, why are you getting Mini tailored subframes when you're fitting them into an Escort? Well, the reason why is this: they're £75 or £70, sorry, for a pair off eBay, and the bracketry that bolts them into a Mini is unboltable. You can just see one of the bolts there in the corner. That's an M8 bolt. And when you remove them frames, you're left with a pair of runners. Them runners can now be drilled to fit to the bottom of the seats. There's the rest of the bracketry I've just removed to, from that one set there. And basically, I can now bolt them to the bottom of the seats and make up my own brackets so that they fit onto the existing holes in the floor. So as you can see here, we've got a hole on the top, hole on the side. They've got captive nuts in. That's the same for both sides. And then further back, we've also got 2 in the floor further back. And I am not going to be drilling the floor. I'm going to basically make the new bracketry that I'm going to make to fit them runners I've just showed you to align perfectly with the holes in the floor. So the seat subframes should look like they were made for the car. So I'll show you how I've done that shortly. It'll be a couple of days time before I get onto that, but for you, as usual, it'll just be a couple of seconds. So here we are, a couple of days later. I've now got the steel, which is 25mm wide by 5mm thick flat bar for 2 lengths of 2.5 meters. That was only a £5 flat bar. Turns out flat bar is pretty cheap. So, you know, if you're coming to build your own seats out of flat bar, or your own seat runners rather, out of flat bar, it is really cheap. I've got some 1/4 UNC bolts. That's the correct thread for the floor captive nuts. I've done a diagram with all the dimensions, etc. I need to build these frames. And I've also set the seat in. I've been putting chocks of wood under, climbing in, setting the height and the angle of the seat, using tape measure and stuff from different cars to try and get it somewhere near where it should be and where it feels most comfortable. So I'm now going to start making my seat runners out of the flat bar. I'll show you some a little bit of footage throughout the process to show you exactly how I did it. So as you can see, the runners are now fitted to the seat, and you can obviously see exactly how they work. That one obviously doesn't have the locking mechanism on, but this one does. So you flick the lever and that basically jumps into each slot, and that's the runners fitted to the seat. All I had to do was open this hole out here to get the fixing points on one side. The other one, as you can see, has already got a cutout which is taken up by the locking mechanism on that side. So that's them fitted to the seat, and I'll show you the brackets that I've started building in the car. And there's the brackets I was just talking about, which I've made out of the steel I showed you just earlier. They're not finished yet. They're probably 80% finished, and then obviously they need painted after that. But they're now bolted in. As you can see, they're bolted in on the original fixings. That's all four. Took some mecking actually. As you can imagine, they've got to be angled. So basically, I'll show you what I mean by that. If I place a flat edge, get my arm out the way. Now you can see that they sit flat, that ruler sits flat on both brackets, but we're at an angle. So each bracket had to be bent to exactly the right angle to allow the runners to sit on top of these upstands. So basically, the runners will sit as I'm holding the ruler. That's how the runners will sit on top like that. They'll be bolted through. One bolt at the front, one bolt at the front, both sides. It's just a case of getting the seat in the right place so that when I adjust the seat backwards and forwards, the travel is correct. They need strengthening plates added in, which is one of my next jobs, to come across from the edge of here down and pick up on the bolts on the inner side, and then there'll be some gusset plates to go around. So basically, they'll angle the brackets back into these back bolts to give additional strength, and that'll obviously be to do on both sides. And then there'll be to paint and everything to bolt together. So I'll show you when they're all finished with the runners on, ready for the seats to bolt into the car, and then I'll show you the seats finally fitted. So that is now both sets of brackets made and painted. I was going to get them powder coated, but I thought I've got some decent black paint. They're completely hidden, they're out of sight, so I'll just do a nice paint job on them. So as you can see, they're all bolted in on all the points I talked about, using 1/4 UNC bolts into the floor. And I've put the gussets in now. I've put the gussets slightly different to what I was planning. As you can see, I've come from the top down, migged it in to the top rail and into the angle bracket to angulate or triangulate the pressure of the seat down into the back of the cross member. They're way over engineered, but that's me all over. I tend to over engineer everything. I'm a firm believer of building things to last. If they're over engineered, they're going to last longer than something that's made out of something that's a bit maybe too light a duty, that'll be prone to cracks, etc. So that's them in the car, and that's them on the seat, just to give you an idea of exactly how they fit. So as you can see, they just bolt through into the seat rails, both back and front. As with everything, you find easier ways of doing things, and I've found the easiest ways to put these seats in the car is to fit the back bracket to the seat permanently, fit the front bracket to the car, sit it in, put the back bolts in, and then the two top bolts from the runners into the top of the brackets are dead easy to get the bolts through. Two 8mm bolts in, and that's the seats in. So I'll show you a little bit of footage of both seats fitted in the car. and we'll take it from there. And there we have both seats fitted in the car. I'm actually really pleased with that. They do look good when they're in. Like I've mentioned in the past, I did want to get the RS2000, Mark II RS2000 fishnets, but they wouldn't be right for the car in the same way these aren't right for the car. And just a couple of weeks ago, before all the restrictions and stuff came into place, I had Graham here from GS Escorts, and he said he really liked the seats and that he thinks they look really good in the car. He says he wouldn't bother changing them, and I really appreciate and respect people like Graham's opinions, because obviously they've built more Escorts, classic Fords than I ever will. You know, he runs a company, that's what they do. So I do really value his opinion. So it's made me feel a lot better about these seats. So I'll probably leave them in certainly for the near future. Maybe if I ever get the chance to get hold of a set of the Beta Cloth ones for a decent price, I might be tempted. But as for now, I'm really happy with that. So all you can see of the brackets is the little upstands on either side. It looks really professional from the outset. So yeah, like I say, I'm really happy with that. And the recline to let people in the back, as you would expect. So I'm going to call that a success. And the only last little thing I've got to do before these seats will go in, or the last couple of things, obviously the carpets need to go in, and this seat needs the bolster repair that I talked about. As you can see, it's just collapsed on that corner, and I do have the bolster for that. So that is definitely something that I will get round to and I will do before this seat is fitted permanently into the car. So that's the seats fitted, and just to show you they're fully operational, we can obviously adjust them to lock into all the different positions as you'd expect. Probably the only downside to the whole job, and if I had one criticism about the job, it would be that only one of the runners lock into place. I didn't realise that when I bought them. The ones I've used in the past, both sections lock, and then there's a little link rod in between. These only lock on one side, which means the seat isn't as solid as you'd hope. But you've seen what I've done with the brackets in the floor. The reason why I went so overboard with the fabrication of them is I want to be confident when if I ever have to hit my brake pedal hard, that these seats are firmly planted to the floor, and I'm certainly happy and confident about that. So yeah, like I say, I'm definitely going to call that a success. And on that note, I'm going to leave this video here. So as usual, thanks very, very much for watching. The amount of comments and likes lately has been amazing. Thank you all very much. I'll see you hopefully very shortly, where I'll do a little bit of an update on some of the parts I've just been buying. And then that'll be shortly followed by the engine going into the car, which will definitely be in the next couple of weeks. So watch out for that video. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.